slavery, where they were not even human. They were just property. But they were crying, like, let's go back. Let's choose a leader to take us back to them. They wanted to do that. Verse 4. Who can read same chapter, verse 4 to 10? I'm sorry, 5 to 10. Numbers 14, verse 5 to 10.
Who were among those who had explored the land, tore their clothes, and said to the entire Israelite assembly, the land we passed through and explored is exceedingly good. If the Lord is pleased with us, he will lead us into the land, a land flowing with milk and honey, and will give it to us. Only do not rebel against the Lord, and do not be afraid of the people of the land, because he will swallow them up. Their protection is gone, but the Lord is with us. Do not be afraid of them.
Amen. So here we see Caleb. It says that he and Joshua tore their clothes. What did that represent when they would tear their clothes? Great despair. It wasn't something they did lightly. Like if somebody cut them off on the road, they'd tear their clothes. It wasn't anything like that. It was something, a distress, right? Something big. So they saw that the people were doubting God. They were murmuring against God, dishonoring God. They wanted to go back to the bondage, back to Egypt, where God had created all those miracles to free them. And now they're claiming they want to go back to that. So they tore their clothing. And here they're trying to rally the troops. They're telling them, God promised us this land. We can't take it. Just don't rebel against God. So Ellen White wrote about this, that out of those spies, only 2 had a good report. If the situation was reversed, if 10 spies gave a good report and only 2 gave a bad report, the people would still follow the bad report of the 2 instead of the 10 giving the good report, because of their wickedness. So the situation here is that the people's heart was still wicked. So they cried out. They wanted to go back. And this is a situation where Caleb and Joshua step up. So Caleb, he wasn't, he was like us, right? He was just one like us. But the difference, what do you guys think the difference was between him and the other people that gave up so quickly? He had complete trust in God. The Bible describes him, that his heart was fully after God. He gave himself completely. There was no reservation in him. He completely gave himself, his service, his time, everything to the service of God. So that marked the difference between him and the people. They were complaining, they were murmuring. It tells us in the lesson, what does this say about Caleb? That he was willing to speak his mind, even though the majority of the spies had completely different opinion. And it tells us in the Bible that as they were rallying the troops, they decided to kill them. They said, let's get stones and kill them. This sounds like Stephen. When he was preaching, it says that they covered their ears. They picked up stones to stone him to death. They didn't want to hear what he had to say. Same thing here. He was saying, God, remember, God promised us this land. Forget the giants. Forget the walls. We can do this. Let's go. And they said, no, we're going back to Egypt. Let's pick up stones. Let's kill them. What happens? God intervenes. His glory came down. And they were all, they saw God's glory and they realized what they were doing. They dropped the stones. But had God not intervened, they probably would have killed Caleb and Joseph. They probably would have stoned them to death. Joshua. And probably gone back to Egypt, back to bondage. So here we see that Caleb, a big difference was in his attitude. And this is something that I did a couple of presentations months ago about how important a positive attitude is. Our attitude and faith go hand in hand. It's not possible to say I have faith and at the same time have a negative attitude. And we see the example here in the Bible. If God promised them they were going to take those lands of Canaan, they were going to drive all these people out, the Amalekites, the Hittites, all these people, and God was going to give them victories. But they had a negative attitude. That dishonors God. You're doubting God's promises. So having a positive attitude is very important for the Christian. We need to have a positive outlook. We need to have a positive attitude because things are going to go wrong. Things are going to happen in life. We're going to lose our job. Our car is going to break down. Things are going to happen. But in the middle of those things, we can't lose heart. We have to depend on God that He's going to see us through. Okay, I lost my job. It's all right. I'm going to find another one eventually. Maybe even a better one. My car broke down. It was old anyway, so maybe I can get another one, you know. So we need to have that kind of positive attitude that's dependent on God, not on the things that we see. So that's one of the mistakes that these people did. So, and the bottom is asking us a question. What do you do when most people around you seem to have a different opinion that goes contrary to your deepest convictions? Have you all ever been in a situation like that, maybe at work or with family members, that you seem to be in the minority? You have your belief in God, but maybe the majority mocks it. They mock the idea of a God. If you haven't been in a situation like that, you might end up in a situation like that. Like I said, I had that situation at work. I had several people that were atheists, and they mocked the idea of a God. They think, oh, it's like Santa Claus. You know, they mock it. They don't understand. They don't have a relationship with God. But you might be in a situation where people are going to question your faith. So you just have to, remember, God is real. He sent His Son here for us. We're waiting for Him to come back. And that is what gives us purpose in life, is what gives us hope of a better future. Without any of that, life is meaningless. So we have plenty of reason for happiness, plenty of reason to have a positive attitude, because death is not the end of things. This world is not it. There's something much better that waits than what we see around us. But we need to claim those promises of God. Any questions, comments on part of Sunday before we move on? Okay, going on to Monday. Give me this hill country. This part of Monday really, I found myself laughing, because I was amused. Like, how old was Caleb at this time? 85. He was about 40, about 40-ish, when we just read that they went to spy. Now, this is 40-some years later. He's 85, right? So he's an older man. I'm not saying old, but he's an older man, right? So here, they're still in the lands of Canaan. They haven't finished the job. They're still driving out some of the inhabitants. So Caleb remembers the promises that God gave. Let's go to the book of Joshua, chapter 14. Joshua 14. I'm going to read, you know what? Let's back up real quick. No, I'm sorry. Let's stay there. Sorry. Let's go to Joshua 14, verse 6 to 14. Joshua 14, verse 6 through 14. It reads, Then the children of Judah came to Joshua in Gilgal, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, said to him, You know the word which the Lord said to Moses, a man of God, concerning you and me in Kadesh Barnea. I was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to spy out the land, and I brought back word to him as it was in my heart, as he proposed. It was a choice he made. Verse 8, Nevertheless, my brethren who went up with me made the heart of the people melt, but I wholly followed the Lord my God. So here we see a positive influence and we see a negative influence. Caleb was trying to be a positive influence. The other 10 spies were a negative influence, and we saw the influence they had on the people. That they cried out, they wanted to go back to Egypt. Verse 9, So Moses swore on that day, saying, surely the land where your foot has trodden shall be your inheritance and your children's forever, because you have wholly followed the Lord my God. And now behold, the Lord has kept me alive, as he said, these 45 years, ever since the Lord spoke this word to Moses while Israel wandered in the wilderness. And now here I am this day, 85 years old. So he is already an older man, but the following verses are what made me chuckle. I really love this. Verse 11, as yet I am strong to this day as on the day that Moses sent me. Just as my strength was then, so now is my strength for war, both for going out and for coming in. Does he still have a positive attitude? Yes, at 85. I just turned 51. And sometimes when I stand up, my back hurts, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my back. So 51. How old is he? 85. And he's saying, I'm as strong now as I was when I was 40. I still have strength to go to war. So this is a part that I love about Caleb, his attitude. Even with 45 years later, it hasn't diminished. He still has a strong, positive attitude. Verse 12. Now therefore, here he's telling, he wants his inheritance. Now therefore, give me this mountain of which the Lord spoke in that day. For you heard in that day how the Anakim were there. Remember, who were the Anakim? They were giants. The Anakim were there, and that the cities were great and fortified. It may be that the Lord will be with me, and I shall be able to drive them out as far as the Lord said. And Joshua blessed him and gave Hebron to Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, as an inheritance. So at 85, that's like at the age you should be retired, right? You shouldn't be seeing war at 85. So he's at the 12 tribes are getting their inheritance. Caleb asked for the most difficult land. The land that still wasn't clear of its inhabitants. It had the giants. They were still there. That's the land he wanted. He said, give me this land. I will finish the job. At 85, he's like, I will drive them out. So this is who Caleb was. That's why I love reading this story of who this new character is, Caleb. He's so positive. At 85, he's saying, like, even though we still haven't driven him out, I'll drive him out. With God's help, I'll drive him out. At 85, he had that attitude, and he said, give me this land. As God had promised, as Moses said, I will drive him out. And then verse 14, Hebron therefore became the inheritance of Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, to this day, because he wholly followed the Lord God of Israel. So, again, it tells us that he was wholly following God 100%. Can we say we follow God 100%? Not to say it out loud, but just to think about it, right? We need to ponder. Can I say I 100% follow God? Can it be written of me? Genaro wholly followed after God? Or did Genaro 70% followed God or 30% followed God? This is a question we need to ask ourselves. How is our daily relationship with God? Do we only remember him when things go bad? Or do we remember him every day, every morning, throughout the day? Do we talk to him? Do we lift our plans up to God and ask for his blessings? So this is something for us to ponder. So his mind is talking about his mind, his attitude. It tells us in the lesson that he was wholly after God. So it tells us that phrase, as it was in my heart. No, where is it? I was fully after the Lord. It's a short form of a longer idiom. My heart was fully following the Lord. I filled my heart to walk behind or after the Lord. So it's telling us that it's a choice that we need to make. We need to make a choice whether we will follow God or we won't. But it's an individual choice that we need to make, that no one else can do it for us. So at 85, he had that spirit. And not because he's here, but Brother Ruben is another role model for me. He's an older gentleman, but he doesn't have a car, so he's always walking. He's always doing ministry work. He goes and visits people. The other day I told him that I was driving down Cage, and I saw him walking with some pamphlets, and he walking straight, good posture, walking fast, and I'm like, hey, there's Brother Ruben, maybe he needs a ride. So I went around the block, came back, he was gone. I'm like, man, he's fast. Like, where did he go? He was visiting people, giving pamphlets. That's a positive role model. That he has the same kind of spirit that Caleb is showing here. Caleb was 85. So we see people that have that same attitude. And it's telling us in the lesson that God's promises are not self-fulfilling in the sense that they come true irrespective of our will. Rather, they require faith accompanied by resolute action. So God makes us promises, but they're not just empty promises. We need to do our part. So if God gave us a great commission to preach the gospel to all tribes, tongues, and nations, is that going to happen on its own? No. We need to do our part. We need faith and we need action. So faith is active, it's progressive, it grows, it moves. So that's something for us to keep in mind. Any questions, comments on Monday? Going on to Tuesday, the power of example. It's telling us here, let's go to the book of Joshua, chapter 15. Joshua 15. Can somebody read verse 16 to 19? Thank you. So, reading this, you might think like, oh, poor Acha. She has no choice. Her dad says, if anybody takes this city, I'll give him my daughter. And she's like, hey, wait a minute, what about me? Like, don't I get a say in this? But think about it. What kind of system did they have in those times? It was a male-dominated system. So we've seen in the Bible that women, if their husband died and they had no male sons, what happened to them? Was it a good future for them? No, they usually ended up on the street. They had no claims to property and such. So it was a different environment they had at that time. So how old is Caleb? We just said a little while ago, 85. He has a daughter. She's single. Caleb is already reaching that age where, I don't know how long I'm going to be around. What about my daughter? What's going to happen to her? So I think this was a wise thing he did. He said, if anybody can take this city, he will be able to marry my daughter. So what good can come out of this? One, he's going to find a good husband, a protector for his daughter, right? Somebody who is smart enough to take that city and brave enough is going to be able to protect his daughter as well. Remember, there's still inhabitants in that land where they're living. There's still enemy out there. So there's still conflict. So he's looking out for his daughter. I need somebody who can protect her. Two, he needs to inspire the next generation of leaders. So here he's giving them a situation where somebody can step up and say, I'll do it. Just like he did when they went to spy the lands and the 10 other spies said, no, it's hopeless. We're doomed. Let's go back. He said, no, we can do this. Let's go. God promised us. Here, he's setting a situation for the next generation. Who amongst you is brave enough to attack and take this city? This city that is full of giants, this city that is well fortified. And somebody steps up and says, I'll do it. And he did do it. So he gets to marry his daughter. And then a third thing that we see in this story, his daughter, he gave her a dowry, right? He gave her land for their wedding. She and her husband talk and they say, let's ask him for more, right? That was kind of bold, that he already gave him a good plot of land for them. But they said, let's ask him for more. Let's ask dad for more. So she goes to her dad and says, And he's like, what do you want? And she says, well, thank you. You gave me this land, but I want springs of water. Mr. Jenkins, how important is water? Very important water. So imagine if you have cattle and all these things and no water. It's very difficult. So she asked for something that was very necessary for them to survive. It was for their future generations. They have land and they have springs of water they haven't made, right? So here we see that these good things came out of this. So this young man's name is Othniel. He's the one that took that city and married his daughter. Let's go to the book of Judges, chapter 3. The next book over, Judges, chapter 3, verse 7 to 11. Again, the children of Israel are complaining, they're murmuring. That tells us, who can read verse 7 to 11? Judges 3, verse 7 to 11.
The Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. They forgot the Lord their God and served the Baals and the anger of the Lord burned against Israel, so that he sold them into the hand of
Rishathaim,
king of
Mesopotamia.